Did you know that there are over 2,000 verses in the Bible related to wealth and possessions? That is more than the verses on prayer and faith combined, something that we would easily think is number one priority in the Bible. So why would God talk about money that much more? I found it's because money reveals what prayer alone can hide. You can say the right things in prayer, you cannot fake your spending habits. You can lift your hands up in worship, but your bank statement still tells the truth about what your heart says about money. So hi, my name is Timothy Smith. I am a Christian financial coach, and I have helped many others learn how to handle money wisely and stress less about it. And so today I'm going to define what a wise manager actually is according to the Bible, because simply many people do not know. I didn't know back when I was 17 when I started my personal finance journey, and now I'm hoping I have the opportunity to teach you everything that I've been learning for the last over 4 years now. We're going to split this up in 3 sections. Section 1 is the foundation, and this is where I explain that it's simply not yours. Everything begins here. The book of Psalms 24 verse 1 says, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it." That is everything. That is not your tithe. That's not 10%. That is everything. Your income, your house, your savings, your abilities, your opportunities. I think I miscounted. Ownership belongs to God. Okay? It all belongs to Him. Management is assigned to you. That is stewardship. Just like when you're in the grocery store, when you're a kid or with your kids now, and they were very handsy. They wanted, they were picking their types of cereal, their types of snacks, and they were picking knowing that they didn't pay for anything, but they were still wanting to make decisions the same way you and I make decisions with our money, or our money. It's not actually our money, it is the Father's money. The same way the kid was picking out what he wanted using his father's money. If you think it is your money, you will live anxious. In the same scenario, imagine if the kid thought that, oh, he had to pay for all the groceries, but he has nothing. He has absolutely nothing. So he's thinking, how the heck am I going to pay for this? You and I are the same way, because we see our bank accounts and we think, oh my goodness, how are we going to pay for this? But the reality is, it's not ours. God multiplies what we are faithful with. Loss will feel personal, and giving will feel painful, and comparison will feel threatening. I remember back when I was living with a friend away from my parents, first time really being out of the house, and it was so hard. And this was a year after I started learning personal finance, and I was getting into like Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps principles, and it felt impossible to save money and still pay my bills. And I realized it honestly wasn't even because like I was doing the wrong things with money. I was definitely making some bad decisions, but it all came down to the fact that I believed the money was mine, and my emotions were so tied to whether I saved money that month or whether I I had a hard time paying my rent that month. There was times that our renter was actually a week or two late, and I was glad because I didn't have the money to pay him. And so that was hard. But when you understand that you are a manager, not an owner, something shifts. Managers are responsible, but they are not ultimate. They don't make the final decision, so to speak. So stop asking, what do I want to do with my money? And start asking, what does the owner want with his resources? How does he want them handled? Does he want to give them away? Does he want to give the charity? Does he want to put it into my savings account? Does he want me to invest into this Roth IRA, whatever, this business investment, whatever? Peace increases when ownership decreases. That is what it means to be purposeful with your money. Now, section 2 is the engine. This is where wisdom and diligence come into play. See, once identity is correct, behavior follows. I explained this in my 3 Laws to Biblical Wealth System. I basically just explained Law 1, and Law 2 is where your actions start to align with your new proper identity, the wise manager identity. The book of Proverbs 10 verse 4 says, "Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth." This directly attacks everything that you hear about passive income. Passive income is not a thing as long as this verse is in the Bible. There is no passive income. The closest thing you can get to passive income is investing into the stock market and then getting to the point where after 15 plus years, you're actually able to live off of all that money that you've been slowly investing into. But 15 years is not passive. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, so there is no real passive income. This is maturity. A wise manager works steadily, not chasing shortcuts, not chasing hype, not chasing quick money, not, for example, not day trading, not, making a course and expecting to live off of it for the rest of your life, not writing a book with AI and thinking you're going to get rich, and definitely not going to Los Angeles gambling at those casinos or buying lottery tickets, all of that stuff. That is hastily money. The Bible says that wealth built hastily will fall apart. What you need is consistent, honest work. Proverbs 21 verse 20 says, "The wise store up choice food and oil," in our case, money, "but fools gulp theirs down, waste theirs." And so wisdom shows up when there is restraint on how we choose to use our money. For example, avoiding high interest debt, avoiding impulse spending, avoiding lifestyle inflammation. I remember I learned this story fairly recently, and it's the story about the Joneses, and you may have heard of it yourself. But the story goes that the Joneses was a small family that was constantly upgrading their lifestyle to look like they had their finances, like they were just as wealthy as the millionaires next door. And so they kept upgrading, when the reality is that they could not afford all of that. They were maxing out credit cards, they were putting liens on their houses, they were going into so much debt that it was starting to become impossible to dig out of with their income alone. And so eventually that bubble popped. Everything was revealed. And they were left, I'm sure they were left bankrupt, or that's decades of effort that's going to take just after 6 months or so of just hazardous choices. Now, Proverbs 22 verse 7 says, "The borrower becomes slave to the lender." It actually says the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. I don't know about you, but I'd rather be rich. And I'll take the Bible's verses, or the Bible's wisdom on this, and I will not get into debt. I don't have any debt at all. And so financial immaturity creates bondage. It literally says become slave to the lender. But wisdom creates freedom, knowing that, in this example, knowing that debt will create that relationship, it will give you freedom. This is the easiest example I could give you. Also, Proverbs 6 shows us about the ant. I don't remember exactly what verse, but it goes something like, "Oh, you sluggard, watch the ant, see how it prepares its food in harvest time and prepares for the harder seasons, winter seasons." And so you have to think of your financial well-being in seasons. I have a good friend and a fellow financial coach, and he had something that showed your financial life in seasons. I don't think I can find it for you now, but basically, I will explain it using the summer and winter. Summer was a season where you are thriving financially, like you're saving money, and you're just not sure what to do with it. Where on the flip side, the winter season was a time of I'm constantly going into debt. I can't save any money. I'm stressed out of my mind. And again, I don't know what to do with it. In all situations, if you're going to have a time when you don't know what to do with it, but the choices that you need to make are different depending on the financial season you're in. Now, wisdom plus diligence creates stability. Stability creates margin. Think of it as two people building a house. One person decides to build themselves a little beach hut by the beach. They're building it on the sand. Whereas the other person goes up the mountain and builds their house on a solid rock. Whose house is stronger? Whose house is more steady, more sturdy? You and I know the answer, but the reality is that so many people set their financial house on the beach and then wonder why it gets washed away with the high tide. But those who make the hard decision of setting their house on the rock, when those beach dwellers are like, why are you setting your house up there? It's going to be harder to get to the beach. You can't have any fun on the mountain. Those people, their wealth lasts a long time because they set it on a solid foundation. That's why in the Bible, Jesus is referred to as the cornerstone, the foundation to the whole operation of Christianity. And it's simply just that margin creates capacity, builds you up. And now the third and final piece is the goal. The goal is generosity and contentment. The goal is not accumulation. The goal is transformation, which is why I need you to get this wise manager mindset. If you don't get this, you're never going to win. 1 Timothy 6 verse 6 says, godliness with contentment is great gain. Contentment is gain. Even if you're doing these steps and for whatever reason, because life is life and it's crazy, 10, 15 years from now, your net worth only increases by $1, but you give away so much extra money in the time being. You learn so much better how to handle money. You're able to teach others how to handle money properly. Then you should have content with that and then understand that that is not a loss, but that is great gain. The Bible also says to not compare yourself to others, in which case, same life situation, somebody else is now $1 million ahead of you. Well, that dude probably stuffed all of his money into his pockets and he's just a couple steps waiting from a fall. You never know. Or maybe he's doing well and he's actually giving away a lot of his money. You don't compare yourself to others. You are doing great just the way you are. Just keep growing, keep improving. Also, the Gospel of Luke 12 verse 15, Jesus warns us against greed. It says something along the lines of money competes for trust. The way to break money's grip on your heart is only through generosity. It reminds me of the story of Jesus was in the temple and a bunch of these rich people were giving away their money. And the reality is that they were giving away some of their money to look impressive. But then came this widow who gave away uh, a mite, which was like a fourth of a penny nowadays. And Jesus was like, everybody stop, look at that. She just gave everything she had. Whereas even the rich and wealthy were dropping in, pounds of silver. The widow's mite was so much more because it showed that money was not her idol, but what the money could do was so much more powerful to her. Now, giving proves that money is not your master, security is not your idol, and your identity is not tied to your net worth. I had a time recently where I was getting into this whole coaching business thing, and I was about 4 months in, 6 months in, and I just did not have a clue what I was doing. And I soon realized I was going to have to take a chunk of my net worth that was already slowly dwindling and give it to a business coach to help me figure it out. And it's like, I'm already at such a big loss. Why do I have to do this? And so even recently, I had to remind myself of my identity, and it's not tied to my financial value. It's not going to be tied to my financial value when I only have $10, and it's not going to be tied to my financial value when I have $10 million. And you should see it the same way. A wise manager can release or hold their money with open hands because it was never his to begin with. Now, in closing, a wise manager, according to the Bible, knows everything belongs to God, works diligently and honestly, exercises self-control, plans with foresight, lives with content, and gives generously. I know it's a lot of items, but really what I'm saying is read Proverbs, understand that the money is not yours, but it's God's, and be less selfish with your money, and you will win. You will win 100%. Now, thank you for watching. Real quick, I do want to share a couple bonuses here at the end. One, for this week and this week alone, until March 7th, I have this lovely program called the Freedom Finders Program. And if you have been looking for some help and you're just like, I want to find some help, maybe I want to hire a coach, I've been looking into this course to learn how to handle money better. The reality is that right now, this is the best opportunity you have to invest into yourself and learn how to handle money wisely. And really simple, you get me for 4 weeks, you get full access to my main program that I could probably sell for $100+. Not to mention the time with me is, I don't think, I can't put a price on that very well, honestly. And simply put, it's $250 for the 4 weeks. It's half off of what I would normally sell it for, but it's only available for the first 3 people who buy. And so you can check it out in the link below. There's a whole doc that you can read. You can see more about me, more about what I've done, more about what the program is, and you can decide if you want to buy. 2, please follow me on Instagram, Timothy Smith Coach, and again, you can find a link for that below. That's also a great opportunity that you can message me there as one of my followers. And 3, please like and subscribe, because that will help other people in your situation find this video and gain the wisdom that they need to handle money better. Because there's so many people out there, high debts, getting ready for retirement, struggling to pay off their student loans, struggling what to do with wealth, and hopefully don't get scammed. And so these people need wisdom to learn how to handle money better. So please, the only way I can do that is through you. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. You are awesome if you watched it till the end. I believe you're going to do well, and I hope to see you become wealthy. So I love you. God bless. And I'll see you in the next video.